Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ba'd. So yesterday, we talked about the hadith about the Salat Ad-Duha, the Duha prayer, the prayer in the daytime. So we talked about how the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he suggested that you pray 2 rak'ahs. You pray 2 units of prayer. And somebody asked me afterwards, they said, well, you mentioned 15 minutes after the time of sunrise begins. How specific is that? So it's not an exact science. It's a range between 10 to 20 minutes. The average is about 15. Right? So it's not exact, but this is the approximated time that we put here. But we find another hadith. وعن عائشة رضي الله عنها قالت كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يصلي الضحى 4 ويزيد ما شاء الله. رواه مسلم. So Aisha says that the Messenger of Allah, when he used to pray Duha prayer, this prayer after sunrise, sometime in the day, he used to pray 4 rak'ahs. And he would increase whatever Allah wanted him to do, or sometimes he would pray more than that. And another hadith by Hadeeth, she said that when the Messenger of Allah ﷺ finished what he was doing, صَلَّى 8 رَكَعَاتٍ وَذَلِكَ الضُّحَى, said he prayed 8 rak'ahs. And that was a duha prayer. Muttafaqun alayhi. This is also in Bukhari and Muslim. So what we find is that we find a hadith yesterday where the Messenger of Allah ﷺ told people, pray 2 rak'ahs, 2 units of duha prayer. And then later on we find Aisha saying, I saw him praying 4. And then we see Hadeeth saying, he prayed 8. And so wait a minute, what's going on? He said 2, then he prayed 4, then he prayed 8. So the thing is that when we analyze everything the Messenger of Allah, peace and blessings be upon him, did or said, we see, especially when it comes to the extra prayers, like the nawafil, it's not always exactly he did the same thing every single time. And what's happened is when people come across hadith like this, in their mind sometimes they say, no, the hadith must mean that he always did this every single time and there's no other way to do this. And if we have this mentality towards hadith, we're going to fall into a potential problem. Yesterday there was a class being taught, and it's going to continue today, by Ustad Hassan Alwan, about the generation of Salah Ad-Din. And he talks about 100 years before Salah Ad-Din. He talks about how when the Crusaders took Jerusalem, or right before that, what was the situation of the Muslim Ummah? And he mentioned, for those of you, how many of you attended that class who were here? Raise your hand real quick. Okay, some of you. It's a fantastic class. So, some of you who were here, he said the situation of the Muslim Ummah was so bad, and he explained so many things. The Ismailis, they had, the Fatimiyya and Ismaili group had taken over Mecca. They stole the black stone. They broke it into pieces. There was groups of assassins going and assassinating leaders. So many things happening, and one of the things he mentioned in there, which some people don't know in history, is that you find people who come from different madhabs, different fiqh schools, actually having such a level of animosity and hatred and fighting with each other that they would sometimes end up burning each other's masjids. They said the Shafi'iyya and the Hanabila, Hanbali school and the Shafi'i school, they were in rivalry to the point where it got so bad that sometimes they would burn down and destroy the other masjid because they followed the other school and other reasons that came from there. Same thing, what is it based on? It's based on this misunderstanding that no, let's say somebody says 2 rak'ah duha. Somebody goes, no, I'm going to pray 4. The hadith says 2. No, the hadith says 4. Another hadith says 8. I will not accept this. How dare you do this? And that creates a level of intensity that causes people to get into such an argument that they would have separate masjids, and they would even mess up the other masjid. SubhanAllah, I've seen this in my lifetime. I've seen it in my lifetime, and I've seen the history of it. So I was visiting East Turkey, different regions of Kurdish area, cities of like Mardin, Diyarbakir, these other places where Salah Ad-Din actually was. Many of the Sahaba were in that region. And when I went to visit one of the masjids in Diyarbakir, I remember it was showing me and said, this is the old masjid from the time of the Sahaba. Khalid ibn Walid was there. They said, this is one of his masjids around that he was originally there and they rebuilt it. So I'm going and I'm saying, okay, what about this side over here? So So this side is the Shafi'i side. This other side of the masjid, that's the Hanafi side. What do you mean by the Shafi'i side and the Hanafi side? Like they did not used to pray in the same part of the masjid? He said, no. They would have their salah over there and they would have their salah over here. SubhanAllah. That was the level. You know, if it's done out of respect, maybe you can excuse it and say, okay, it's not that big of a deal. But when it gets to the point where it's such at a level where we're like, that masjid, I'm going to take them down. How dare they do something like this? Based on what? Based on the essential misunderstanding of how to have some flexibility in approaching the field of hadith. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect our minds from misunderstanding our religion, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect our hearts from making big deals out of things that don't need to be a big deal. Ameen wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.